Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Mikal Worldby Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 158, the Jack McVeigh episode, as the Houston Rockets rookie made NBA history this past season, becoming the first player ever to wear number 58. So many thanks to Jack for helping us fill number 58 for this show. And for any other future NBA players that might be listening, if you want some guaranteed love from the 48 Minutes crew, choose a number no other player has worn, and I like your chances of being honored on a future episode.
Hey, Ross.
Yeah.
Is that also the number of seconds that McVeigh played this season?
He actually played like 3 or 4 games. I couldn't believe it. He averaged over 1.5 points a game. I had never heard of the guy, to be quite honest. And, he played in late April. So he was around a little bit for the end of the season. So I'm just, again, thankful that he was able to help us fill episode number 158 here tonight. But we've got a lot more to go ahead and fill up tonight's show, and that's going to start out with the Eastern Conference Finals as Game 4 just took place in Indiana. The Indiana Pacers bounced back from their Game 3 home loss to the Knicks and took a 3-1 series lead on Monday night, winning 130-121. Big night from Tyrese Haliburton, but before I dive any further into it myself, World B, I'll let you have the floor here and let us know how you're feeling as a Knicks fan right now.
They're in a hole. I mean, 3-1 is 3-1, no matter how you want to look at it. They get a game on Thursday, Game 5 at Madison Square Garden, hoping to bring it back to Indiana for a Game 6, where they've been able in the past, 30 years ago in the past, but have had their backs against the wall, facing elimination, and come through with a big win in Indiana. So we'll see what happens. They played better in these 2 games, I thought, than they did in the first 2 games. If you look at them, as a whole, those 2 combined. Tonight was just a sloppy night for the Knicks, and Indiana had some really hot shooting right from the start.
They really did. Bruce, watching this game, who were some of the players on the Pacers that really stood out to you tonight?
Well, look, I mean, Tyrese Haliburton went off in the first quarter. He had 15, 5, and 6. And he followed it up in the second with 5, 3, and 4. So he had 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists at the halftime. And he ended up with, 32, 12, and 15 with 0 turnovers. So if we were going to say it was somebody's game tonight, it was the Tyrese Haliburton game. But also, it could also have very well been the Bennedict Mathurin game, who played 12 minutes and had 20 points. I mean, if you do one of your Mikal Freer numbers in 36 minutes, he would have had 60 points in 36 minutes had he been able to maintain that. So those 2 guys and a very quiet but effective 30 points from Pascal Siakam. So they got just enough from those guys, and the Mathurin numbers, I mean, he hadn't been doing much so far in this series, but he really picked a good time to show up.
He really did. And this one, I mean, just throughout the entire game, seems like a game of runs, but like every time the Knicks were like kind of knocking on that door of maybe a 2-possession game, I feel like the Pacers really responded well and tacked on a couple more points there. And it was always flirting around that 9 to 10 point cushion there for Indiana throughout this one. But yeah, credit to Haliburton, the fact that he had 15 assists, 0 turnovers, of course, Bennedict Mathurin as well. And got to give a shout out to Aaron Nesmith. He was questionable heading into this game as he suffered an ankle sprain in Game 3. Obviously, his availability was going to be pretty big news just for how the Pacers stacked up against the Knicks. He ended up playing 32 minutes, so really grinded that out, shot 5 and 9 from the field. So had some big plays there as well. World B heading back to Madison Square Garden for Game 5. I mean, what are some things you're looking to clean up on your end?
Well, the turnovers have got to clean up for New York. This was a sloppy game. It's one of the dumbest games I've seen from the Knicks in a long, long time. It wasn't just turnovers, which are bad. No, it's just sloppy. It was lazy passes. It was not realizing you have a trailer coming up from behind, and which Indiana did that as well. Let's be honest. I've never seen. I can't remember the last time I saw so many passes by a trailer, intercepted by a trailing defender. So on both teams, but yeah, there's sloppy turn. I mean, 17 turnovers. You're not gonna win many games on the road like that when you're playing a team as good as Indiana that doesn't turn the ball over. That's one of the things we're going to talk about Oklahoma City. That's one of the things they are legendary for, is their ability to hang on to the ball and force other teams into turnovers. This is what Indiana did tonight. I felt that we'll see the availability of Karl-Anthony Towns because he went down at the end of the fourth quarter near the end. He is a matchup nightmare for the Pacers. And we saw it in game 3. Miles Turner just cannot stay with Karl-Anthony Towns. We talked about it in our last show, preview of the series. That was the matchup. How could Miles Turner do? Well, he couldn't. And they ended up having to put Siakam on. That's probably one of the reasons why Siakam wasn't spectacular like we're used to on offense, although he hit some key shots when they needed it. Having to go up against Karl-Anthony Towns trying to defend him, which they put him on there. They actually went and doubled at times too because they're really at a loss for how to defend Karl-Anthony Towns. And I really don't think the Knicks took enough of an advantage of the situation there. They tried in the first half. Second quarter, he had like a dozen points. Brought him back after Indiana just shot the lights out in their first. The first quarter they scored more points than the second half of game 2. They had 43 points in the first quarter. They had 42 points in the second half of game 3. So they really came out really on fire offensively, and then credit the Knicks for coming back. And Karl-Anthony Towns is a big part of that. He didn't really have it in the second half, didn't have it in the fourth quarter. And we'll see how healthy he is. They absolutely, in my opinion, need him as close to full strength as you can get out of him because the Pacers just don't have an answer for him on defense.
No, they don't. Now, Bruce, going into Madison Square Garden, Game 5, obviously the Knicks are going to have their backs against the wall in that one. But how do you think the Knicks can respond after a Game 4 loss like this?
It's funny. We all gave Tom Thibodeau his flowers after Game 3 because he expanded his rotation and he used some extra guys, and people like Josh Hart were fresher at the end of Game 3. And he did it again in Game 4. I mean, he actually had 10 guys that played, but as Ross mentioned, as we were talking prior to taping, Precious Achiuwa basically took off his warm-ups for about a minute, and then that was it for him. So Tibbs used 9 guys. So now what I'm wondering is, with his back against the wall, is Tibbs going to sort of revert back to his really tight rotation and just go with 7 guys? It may well be what he should do because I do expect the Knicks to win Game 5. This team is too gritty to go out on a stretcher on their home court. I don't see that happening. I mean, that's what I'm going to be looking for, whether Tibbs, does he start Josh Hart again and bring Mitch Robinson off the bench? And does he really, dial back on the number of guys that he uses? I have a funny feeling he will.
Yeah.
Because it worked one game and then it didn't, and there's no tomorrow for them in Game 5.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
Here's the thing about the added lineup. DeLon Wright was plus 11. He was the best because they outscored Indiana by 11 when he was on the court for just 9 minutes. So credit him for being productive. He missed a chippy layup that really would have gotten him back off a steal from a lazy inbound pass by Indiana. They couldn't convert. And then Landry Shamet, they were plus 6 when he was on the court. So these guys are being productive. They were productive in Game 3. And here's the thing too: Karl-Anthony Towns' health is an issue at the moment until we know further. And Mitchell Robinson, he gave you some offensive rebounds tonight, but he really didn't. There was and a couple of free throws, which was nice to see.
He made 2 free throws.
He made 2 free throws, which is a big deal. If we had if he had made 2, Knicks had made a couple of free throws in Game 1, this series would be tied right now, late. But they really didn't get anything out of him. Really, he played less than 20 minutes, and he got outscored by 20 when he was on the court. So I'm not so sure he's not going to keep with this rotation. It has been productive when he's been on. These guys have been on the court, And yeah, Precious Achiuwa only played a couple of minutes and didn't see a whole lot of time on the court, giving some guys a rest. We'll see what happens with Karl-Anthony Towns. Face elimination at home, it's all hands on deck. Whatever's working that's what you go with.
Yeah, and for Karl-Anthony Towns, I feel like he's got to take a shot or something and play in this game, because if he were not to play in this game and the Knicks lose, I mean, I can already expect the Knicks fans to go after Cat's toughness if he wasn't able to play. Even fair or unfair, I just think there would be the pressure. Cat couldn't show up for a elimination game, and that would really kind of turn the tables on a very productive season from him.
But he could also come out there and pull a Willis Reed and be, limping around, hit a couple shots early, get the crowd into it, get the team juiced up. Because really, in Game 4, on Tuesday night, he picked up 2 fouls in the first quarter, and I really thought that hurt his sort of mojo for the rest of the game, because he had to sit out like the last 8 minutes of the first quarter. As it turned out, he played pretty foul-free for most of the rest of the game, but he wasn't very aggressive on defense, and I think that sort of those 2 fouls might have affected him a little bit more than Knicks fans would have hoped that they would. But I agree with you, Ross. I mean, unless he's in traction, he's going to play Game 5.
Yes,
I agree. I think only the most pathetic fan would really question Karl-Anthony Towns' toughness after watching what he was doing in Game 5. His knee's been bothering him for a couple of days now, for a couple of games, and it really went. It really got hurt. He got pushed into on that one foul that originally was called on him, and they found out Miles Turner pushed him on review, and he was really hurting, and he still stayed in the game, toughed it out or whatever. Yeah, I think if he's able to play, if he can't play, it's not going to be because of lack of toughness. It's going to be because he's really freaking hurt. He has a serious injury of some kind. Otherwise, I expect to see him now. What kind of Karl-Anthony Towns are we going to get in Game 5 if he's playing on one leg or whatever, if he's not healthy enough? There's only one day off between games. You're flying back. It's not, we're past the whole 3 or 4 days off, and they need him to score, as we saw in Game 3. He came up with one of the all-time games for Knicks fans in Game 3 in the fourth quarter. 20 points in 7 minutes, by the way. And so they'll need him if they want to really have a chance to come at us and send the series back to Indiana.
And I believe that Mikal Bridges is really going to have a bounce-back game in Game 5. He was only 6 out of 18 in Game 3. They managed to win. He was 6 out of 15 on Tuesday night, and some of those points were sort of, late game, not significant buckets. He needs to really show up, because when that guy's making some shots, it opens up so many other things. It puts Brunson in a better position to get some assists, and it's another scoring threat. And I really feel like if he has a good game in Game 5, which I'm expecting, then I'm predicting a Knicks win in Game 5.
I don't disagree with that, Bruce. I think you're right about that. I would also say, not necessarily defending him, because I was really frustrated the fact that he took twice as many shots in the fourth quarter as Karl-Anthony Towns. However, as we mentioned at the top of the show, he's the guy that's tracking Tyrese Haliburton around all over the place on defense. It's not an easy task. Haliburton goes up and down. I mean, they were fast break city the first half of this game, first quarter, really. They were all over the place, up and down the court. And Haliburton uses the whole court when he's in the half court offense. So that's a tough assignment for him. It's the right assignment, because you need your best defender on their other team's best offensive player. I don't know if that's really contributing to anything, but it's certainly his offense has not been where they need it to be, and especially if Towns is not going to be 100% for Game 5.
Yeah, they're going to need someone to step up offensively if Cat is not the same in Game 5. Now, before we move on, I just want to backtrack one last time here. Can we all just agree when Tom Thibodeau expands his bench by even one player, it's actually like 2 players for any other coach, just given how strict he is with, his appetite for a rotation? I feel like him going from 8 to 9 is like a regular coach going 8 to 10. I mean,
I give the guy credit because I've always sort of felt like he doesn't like to adjust his plan. But
no.
I thought that the fact that he did, and it was very interesting that, Josh Hart almost kind of nudged him into doing that by kind of saying, look, I might be able to do a better job for you coming off the bench. Put Robinson in there early on, try and, get some rebounds, be a presence on defense. And although it didn't technically really work in both games, because in both of the games, Indiana had like 30 points in the first quarter on game 3, and they had 43 in the first quarter on Tuesday. Not blaming him. They were burying threes at a crazy rate, and Mitch Robinson isn't really going to stop those shots. So, but I do feel like, I'm going to ease up on Thibs a little bit. I don't have any real problems with what he tried to do.
That's a fair point. All right, next up, we got the Western Conference Game 4 recap as the Oklahoma City Thunder held on to secure a 128-126 road victory to move ahead 3-1 in the series. This one was a nail-biter, but let's not forget that they got absolutely embarrassed in Game 3 in the first game in Minnesota. So a big-time bounce-back win for them as well on the road here for the Thunder, and they just seem to be a well-composed bunch is kind of my takeaway from this weekend. In this group, because after the embarrassing loss, they didn't get too low and they didn't seem to get too high after a 3-1 series lead. Bruce, what's your big takeaway from the Thunder here that hold a commanding 3-1 series lead over the Wolves?
Well, they set the tone in the first quarter. I mean, SGA and Jay Will each had 13 points. Yeah. They put up 37, had a 7-point lead, and they forced the Wolves into 7 turnovers in the first quarter. Only 19 field goal attempts. So it's funny. The Wolves shot 63% from the floor, including 5 for 10 on threes, but they turned the ball over so much that they gave away a lot of scoring opportunities. So, there was, SGA and Jay Will both had huge games overall, and Chet Holmgren as well. But that first quarter I really felt like, the die was cast as far as how that game was going to go after one.
Yeah, for sure. SGA and Jalen Williams actually ended up combining for 74 points in this one. So very impressive stuff there. Kind of reminds me of some of the Jaylen Brown Tatum duo points that we've seen throughout the years in years past. World B, what were your takeaway from Game 4 in the Western Conference?
Well, first thing first, after winning Game 4, the series is over. Oklahoma City hasn't lost 3 in a row all season. I don't think they're going to do it now. This is what star teams do. We saw the Celtics last season when they dominated.
All right. Looks like we got a little freeze frame on World B there. So
yeah,
it's funny. Their defense was just like ridiculous. And actually, World B I think is back now. So World B, you froze there for a moment. If you want to finish your point,
I'll tell you they really impressed me how they came back. They bounced back from a embarrassing loss. They just let it go. It's one of those ones. I remember Pat Riley back with the Laker days. Just let it go. Just let the hits just keep coming. We'll write it off and come back. You adjust. You regroup. That's what champion teams do. That's what the Celtics did last year. They suffer a loss. They come back and dominate the next game. That's how you do when you win titles. And they've been waiting for Jalen Williams to have this. He had not had a good playoffs or had a good postseason up until really Game 7 of the Nuggets series. But 30% from the threes coming into this series, and now he's just really on fire. Took 24 shots too, which is really good to see out of somebody who doesn't have to all go through SGA. And he stepped up with your team needs you. You don't want to be 2-2. And then give another team momentum. He stepped up, and they were able to hold on and pull it out. And in a place where it was pretty loud there in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, very loud there. I kind of was shocked by Hartenstein only playing 16 minutes in this one. He had 2 points, 6 rebounds. His 16 minutes were countered by Rudy Gobert playing 32, and then of course. They got those other bigs in Randall and Naz Reid that both played in the mid-20s. So the fact that Jalen Williams was able to put up 34 points in this one while also playing a bigger position defensively was what really impressed me in this one. And it was really good to see him have a big game because, as we'll get to later, he did make the NBA, the All-NBA third team this year. And there could be some questions in regards to that. Well, he kind of answered it in this one, stepping up when it was needed most after a Game 3 loss. So I think I'm with you, World B. I don't see the Thunder losing 3 straight games to the Wolves. I think this series is a wrap. Bruce, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, Oklahoma City's defense is like the most ridiculous defense, the most relentless. I mean, they absolutely hounded Anthony Edwards relentlessly. He only got off 13 field goal attempts. He made 5. He was 1 out of 7 from downtown. He had 5 turnovers. And, Alex Caruso was just like, again, I always describe him as a Tasmanian devil on the perimeter, and he was doing his thing big time. I mean, every time Anthony Edwards or anyone else on the perimeter thought they had an inch, he was just in their shirt. And look, between Edwards and Julius Randle had a terrible game in Game 3. Between them, I think they had a total of 10 turnovers, 5 each. So, And Randle has been so good in this postseason. Last week, I praised him for what he had been doing, but in this series, he's had good game, bad game, good game, bad game. So I guess he's due for a good game in Game 5, but I think this series is over too. I mean, look, it's funny. If a casual fan looked at the box score from Game 4, all right, they'd be scratching their heads. The Wolves shot a higher percentage from the floor. They shot a higher percentage from 3. They took 8 more free throws, plus they had more rebounds and more assists. So how did they lose? The same way the Knicks lost on Tuesday night, turnovers. Their turnovers caused them to take 11 fewer field goal attempts in a game they lost by 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, or as World B likes to say, kids, take care of the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what the Thunder do. This is what makes them so elite. They've done it all year. They're the best in the league at limiting turnovers on offense, and they're the best in the league at causing turnovers on defense. That's a ridiculous combination. They don't have to shut you down defensively the way other teams have to shut you down to be a good defensive team. They take away your possessions, and they maintain their own possessions and get scoring opportunities off of those, especially when you got a guy like SGA who gets to the free throw line like he legendary, at the legendary pace. I know he doesn't like it, and Oklahoma City fans don't like it, but too bad. That's what it does. It's like, he 3 wins. He's gone to the line 43 times. So, I mean, it doesn't, just happen by accident. He knows what he's doing, but that's the situation. Instead of turning it over, not only I get free throws at the other end or at the offensive end, and now I'm scoring, and the other end, I'm taking away your possession. So, yeah, I agree with you. And the other takeaway from this was Anthony Edwards absolutely needs a big game here on the road because his comments after Game 4 was not a good look. I mean, you talked about his lack of shots from the field. It's the second time in 3 games he's taken like 13 shots. So this isn't just a one-time thing. But then he comes out afterwards. This is a guy who we want to put on the exalted level with SGA and all the other greats of this game, the new generation of guys. And we get comments after the game. It's like, I made the right play all night, and I didn't get enough shots, and I didn't struggle at all. That's not stuff you want to do when you lose and you're the star and you only take 13 shots. You got to stand up and be accountable. Those are not comments from a guy who's holding himself accountable.
Yeah, not from a franchise leader. I would definitely agree with you there, World B. And as for one last note on this series, I do want to point out SGA's cousin, Nickiell Alexander-Walker, has been playing exceptionally well. He's going to be a free agent this summer, and boy, it seems like his play in the Western Conference Finals is going to help him secure a bag from somebody because just in the last 3 games alone, he has stepped up big off that Minnesota bench. So I think some teams might be calling for him and his services this summer. All right, and we're back here. Let's go ahead and get to our NBA season awards as they've finally been revealed here. And let's start off with the biggest award out there, and that is the most valuable player. SGA won his first ever MVP award, and to my surprise, and I think to your surprise as well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this one wasn't even a close call. SGA single-handedly won the league's top honor over Jokic. Bruce, I'll start with you. Were you shocked this wasn't a closer result?
Well, look, the MVP award was always SGA's award to win this year. The only surprise, as you mentioned, was the large margin of victory. He led his team to the best record. He benefited, I believe, from a little bit of voting fatigue about Joker, who had won it 3 times. But know this about Joker. In the last 5 seasons, he's won the MVP award 3 times, and in the 2 years he didn't win the MVP, he finished second, okay? Take nothing away from SGA. He deserved this award. I predicted before the season began. I'm happy that he won it. He's most deserving. And yes, the shock was that he had 71 first-place votes and only 29 for Joker.
Yeah. World B, you calling voter fatigue here?
Sure seems like it. I mean, everything we read leading up to the end of the season, most people believed that SGA was going to win the MVP. When you have that much talk about it, there's not a whole lot of support for Joker. I was one of them that thought he should have been the MVP. It's not a crime against humanity that SGA won it by any stretch. He had an unbelievable season and well deserving of it. It's not, just because I thought Joker's value to the Nuggets, I thought was greater than SGA's, but it doesn't take away from the season that he had or whether or not he was deserving of it. He absolutely was deserving of it, and he's showing it here in this postseason run. Obviously, not that matters towards the MVP, but he absolutely. I wasn't surprised by the margin just because of all the talk, as Bruce was talking about. From about the All-Star game on, it seemed like it was his to lose, SGA's to lose, and he never really had a bad slump all season where, a week or two or had a bad stretch of 5 games or things like that. He was pretty consistent, and not just consistent, consistently excellent. And he's the leader of the best team in the league and one of the All-NBA players, first-team All-NBA guys. So it certainly makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think the fact that he played consistent every night, had the league's best record during the regular season, led his team to that top honor. I was happy he was crowned with it. It's just tough because with the Joker, I mean, some of those games that he pulled out, I mean, just insane video game numbers for wins that the team had no chance of winning without him out on the floor. And in fact, you've talked about it all year, World B, with just kind of the on-off numbers for the Joker. But congrats to SGA. So with that, let's go ahead and get to our All-NBA team, starting out with the first team. We've got Giannis, SGA, Joker, Tatum, and Donovan Mitchell, Bruce. Any surprises here on the first team?
Well, my only real quibble is Donovan Mitchell over the aforementioned Anthony Davis at guard. I mean, Anthony Edwards, sorry, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards. Edwards played 8 more games. He had slightly better numbers across the board. I think Mitchell got the nod because his team won 15 more games than Edwards and easily had the best record in the Eastern Conference. And honestly, I think you could even make a case for Jalen Brunson over Donovan Mitchell this year. So Mitchell was the only one I disagreed with.
World B?
I don't know if it was necessarily a surprise, but if you're looking to say where could you have made the change, it probably would have been Mitchell. I would have the considerations are obviously Anthony Edwards. I would have even possibly looked at Steph Curry. I thought Steph Curry had a really, really good year, and his numbers when Jimmy Butler came aboard really took off, and he became the leader. Even with Jimmy Butler there, it only heightened Steph Curry's value to the team and his overall excellence on the court. I could have totally seen him be a first-team All-NBA player instead of Donovan Mitchell. But you know what? Donovan Mitchell, we were talking about SGA being the MVP because he was the best player on the best team. Well, Donovan Mitchell was the best player on the East best team. And we talked about it. I've talked about it at length. They had one of the best shooting seasons in the history of this league. And Donovan Mitchell is a big part of that. So, yeah, he's a deserving first-team guy. If you were looking for where you might want to quibble, maybe that would be the one. Other than that, everything seemed pretty obvious.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind here, too, if the Cavs were still around in the Eastern Conference playoffs right now, I don't even know how much more of a discussion we'd be having. I think it's just a little weird that we've got to keep in mind this was the regular season performances, and obviously the Cavs didn't live up to expectations come playoff time. So I think it was well-deserved there by Spida. Now, the All-NBA second team, Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, and Evan Mobley. Bruce, is this the last time we'll see LeBron in a first or second team All-NBA?
Brian Windhorst of ESPN seems to think he is, because he didn't vote for LeBron for first, second, or third team All-NBA, which I found borderline amazing. But, whatever. Maybe he was a little bit butthurt when LeBron said, "Oh, Windhorst thinks I'm his best friend," or whatever. But, I don't know. Don't mess with Windy, I guess, is the message for LeBron. My only, there's no real issues here. However, I think LeBron over Karl-Anthony Towns is a slight quibble. But again, based on, body of work for a million years and the fact that at age, 40, he was still putting up like big time numbers, I'm comfortable with LeBron getting the nod. Everything else on that second team was cool by me, World B.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with any of them. Evan Mobley is one of the best defensive players in the league too, and so you throw that in there. LeBron James is still putting up numbers that are very elite. There's only a couple people out there that are doing 20 and 7 and 7, and he's one of them. So no, I don't have any problem. I will say this: I don't know Brian Windhorst, but if you can't put on this league and this All-NBA team, you can't find a spot for LeBron James with the numbers he put up this year. I'm sorry, you really telling me this isn't a thing that's personal? I don't like questioning somebody's integrity or somebody's professionalism, but how do you do that? That's just unbelievable to me. This is a NBA, one of the elite NBA reporters out here really doesn't think there are 15 players in this league better than LeBron James. I don't see it. Or at the very least, there were 6 forwards that were better than LeBron James.
That's a good way of putting it too. Yeah.
So this reeks of personal here, whether it was or not. I'm not going to go there, but it's really surprising that somebody at the level of Brian Windhorst would not put LeBron James at 1, 2, or 3. It just boggles my mind.
It didn't keep him from making second team. I mean, he didn't deserve first team. He did deserve second team. So Windy's, whatever you want to call it, I mean, you could call it snub, you could call it whatever, didn't really affect him that much. And so, but I think, I've always considered Brian to be a very honorable guy. So
he maybe
we'll give him a pass on this one, because it does seem that there was something a little bit kind of smelly there.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get to the All-NBA third team here. We had Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Haliburton, World Beast guy James Harden, Karl Towns, and Jalen Williams. Any surprises here, Bruce?
Well, the third team is where the 65 game rule kind of came into play for me in looking at this, because Jaylen Brown played 63 games, too short of what he needed. So he didn't qualify for All-NBA. If he had played 2 more games, I think he would have been a better choice than James Harden. Brown could have limped into 2 late season games if this really was something that he was, cared a bunch about, and he would have qualified and he probably would have made it. But he chose to rest for the playoffs, sacrificing a personal award for the good of the team. So for all the Brown haters, especially those among Celtics fans, which to me is just like really annoys me to no end as a Celtics fan myself, that there are all these Celtics fans that are so down on the guy. He sacrificed an All-NBA position to rest up for 2 games to try and be ready for the postseason, which he was, and he played well in spite of the fact that he was kind of hurting. But for Celtics fans that are down on Jaylen Brown, you should really take note of this and take that into consideration next time you want to hate on this guy. So, that's my only quibble there. If he'd have been able to play 2 more games, but it's not really a quibble because he didn't qualify. So that's why,
Right.
But that's just my context to the whole thing.
Gotcha. Will be any thoughts on the third team?
I would have put Tyler Herro on there instead of James Harden. I thought Tyler Herro deserved to be a third team, an all NBA player. His numbers is the best season of his career. I know the Heat were not impressive that we're used to seeing, but you look at his numbers, it's not the fault of his. I mean, he shot his best, had his first All-Star game appearance, won the 3-point shootout, had the best season of his career shooting wise. I thought he was more deserving than James Harden. That being said, Bruce mentioned Jaylen Brown. Don't forget, Wemby doesn't sit out the second half of the season. He's on one of these teams, and one of these other guys, if you go down, maybe Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't show up on the All NBA. When you look at it, I don't know who else would go down.
I mean, I thought he'd probably make the second team. I was going to ask
right,
you
but that would bump somebody down.
Where would Wemby end up? I think he would have been a second team guy this year at least.
And that would have put somebody like Evan Mobley maybe down the third team, and then Karl-Anthony Towns is the odd person out in that mix. Or whatever, maybe Evan Mobley's the odd person out. But Wemby is the guy that, to me, that because of his injury, because he sat out and wasn't eligible, he didn't get to spot one of these spots, which he absolutely would have.
Yeah. And also too, he would have probably been a runaway winner of Defensive Player of the Year, which would have also, been at Evan Mobley's expense too. So,
yep.
But I mean, unlike Brown, who missed the eligibility by 2 games, I mean, Wemby missed half the season. Right. So, I mean, but we all know he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, and he'll probably win it for the next several years if he's healthy moving forward.
I will make this prediction right now here. Cade Cunningham will go from third team to first team next year. All NBA.
Wow.
There you go. Smokin Hot Take, World B.
I think he's that guy to make that next step into the elite category. I've been a big fan of Anthony Edwards, you guys know, since his rookie year, and championed him for the All-Star game from the very beginning. I think Cade Cunningham has a chance to surpass him in terms of status within this league. He's getting better and better, as Anthony Edwards is, by the way. His numbers get better every year, too. So he's more than capable of taking that next step. I've just been very impressed with Cade Cunningham. Now that we see how he is healthy, if he gets a better jump shot, look out, NBA.
So if that happens, World B and Ross, do you think that that's going to lift Detroit up from that number 6 seed and get them into the top, 4, where they might have home court in the first round? Do you see that happening with that team?
Yeah, I do. I think you look at the Central Division next year. Obviously, I think the Bucks take a step back with Damian Lillard being out. The Bulls are kind of stuck in mediocrity. You've got the Pacers, but outside of them, I mean, obviously the Cavs are going to still be a good team. But I think that the Pistons could be right there with those 2 teams, especially if Cade Cunningham puts together a first team type season. And
they have to add some pieces here. They're not going to get to where they want to get with the lineup they had again this season with Tobias Harris, who had a good season, Tim Hardaway Jr., good pickups this season. But you want to be among the elite, you got to get elite. Indiana became an elite team when they made a trade for Pascal Siakam last year.
Great point.
That's how you took Haliburton, who was already a top-notch player, added an All-NBA caliber player in Siakam, and their world got a whole lot better. Other players, good draft picks and good acquisitions around those guys. Detroit's got to do that now, surround Cade Cunningham with a quality player along that way. And then I can see them contending for a home court advantage in the East. They have to, not with the team they have now, but assuming they add some pieces, however it may go, they can. I see that.
Well, they'll get a lot more action out of Jaden Ivey, hopefully, next year, too. Maybe that's the guy that Cade needs running with him.
Yeah. Or it could be the guy that's traded, honestly. I mean, if they're going to go get some firepower, I could see him being the odd man out that they
need another all-star. I agree with Ross. You don't need a superstar. I don't think you need a big 3 anymore. but I think you need an all-star caliber player to go along with him to really look at how the Knicks world got better. Karl-Anthony Towns joined up with Brunson. Now you have 2 all-NBA players. That's just how you got to do it, I think, in this world.
Yep. Well, let's just keep this going here. Let's get to our final thoughts. Bruce?
Sometimes during the NBA playoffs, getting your asses kicked can be a wake-up call, even for a great team. In the 1984 NBA Finals, the Celtics lost Game 3 to the Lakers by 33 points, but they stormed back in Game 4 in the famous Mikal Rambis clothesline game and won the series in 7. Then the following year, the Celtics beat the Lakers in Game 1 by 34 points in what was known in Boston as the Memorial Day Massacre, before LA stormed back to win Game 2 and then take that series in 6. So, fast forward to this past weekend. Saturday night, the Timberwolves humiliated OKC by 42 points. They won every quarter, and then they saw the Thunder bounce back on Monday with a gritty win that put a 3-1 stranglehold on the series with Game 5 in OKC. Now, we've already discussed the fact that the Thunder are likely to win this series in Game 5, but so I expect them to follow in the footsteps of the Lakers and Celtics, who both answered their wake-up calls 40 years ago, and I think they'll win their series after that brutal loss in Game 3. The only question is how long it'll take. I'm saying it won't take much longer at all. OKC in 5.
All right. Well said there, Bruce. World B?
Yeah, when we did our show last week, the Eastern Conference Finals hadn't started yet, so we hadn't had a chance to react to one of the all-time comebacks from the Indiana Pacers in Game 1 that were down 14 with about 2 minutes to go and pulled out 2.5 minutes ago and pulled the game out in overtime. And one of the all-time shots in NBA playoff history with Haliburton hitting that miracle shot that Bruce brought back memories of Don Nelson in the 69 finals. But after that game, there, as a Knicks fan and Knicks follower or whatever, a lot of Knicks fans are talking about how this was the biggest choke of all time for the Knicks. This was the biggest one of all. I would remind you, this was not the biggest. It might have been the biggest comeback, biggest collide. It was not a choke job for the Knicks when you compare to what happened in 1995 in Game 1 and the Reggie Miller 8 points in 9 seconds game when the Knicks had that Game 1, and along with Reggie hitting back-to-back threes, stealing an inbound pass, Pat Riley not having any timeouts left for the Knicks, Derek Harper, their starting point guard, getting thrown out, John Starks missing 2 free throws after Reggie had tied the game, Patrick Ewing missing a follow-up chippy, the Knicks fouling Reggie Miller, allowing him to hit the 2 free throws to win the game in a series that eventually went to Indiana in 7 games in the Garden. That was easily, for me, the biggest choke job of all time. So I know the first game of this series is legendary for the way it ended and how Haliburton brought him back in that shot, and it was dramatic. But it still takes some work to match the feeling I had after watching Game 1 of 95 and Reggie's 8 points in 9 seconds.
Yeah, it didn't take long for my question to you if Tyrese Haliburton was going to break out the chokehold to come to fruition. There did it, World B?
No, I don't know if I ever rooted against somebody more when the game went to overtime because in my scenario, the Knicks pull that one out and he's got to eat his words, so to speak, for all that. But you know what? It ended up winning. They ended up winning the game. He got to relish in the move there. It'd be nice if he actually came up with a gesture of his own instead of copying somebody else's, but whatever. To the victors belong the spoils, and you win, you get to do silly stuff like that.
All right, some emotional scars never heal. That's
apparently
all I got to say. I got scars older than that still haven't healed, but listening to you sort of recite one thing after another there made me feel like I feel you, buddy.
Now, the choke one that Reggie Miller did in '94, that was a shocker. But it was a shocker just because Reggie was hitting all the threes, and the Knicks were turning it over at the other end. That was another major collapse. But I don't mind that as much because the next 2 games, the Knicks went into Indiana, won Game 6 when nobody thought they were going to win, and then they pulled out Game 7 in Patrick Ewing's best game of his career with a 20-20 game with 7 blocks, 7 assists. He had the best game of his career at the biggest moment. And that one, I can live with Reggie's choke move. Tyrese was one that hit a little closer to home. And if they don't pull the series out, it's really going to hurt.
I was going to say that. I mean, could he possibly break it out again if they were to win Game 5 in Madison Square Garden? Does he double down or does he stop while he's ahead?
I don't know what goes through his mind anymore. He's feeling pretty. He's got to be feeling pretty confident coming off the Game 4 performance he had. He's finally found his jump shot. That's a big deal because he had not all this stuff we've been talking about, and that miracle shot that he's going to live forever. He hadn't had a good series shooting the ball from the perimeter. They've been playing off him and letting him shoot that ball, and that's one of the reasons the Knicks were able to come back and win Game 3 in such dramatic fashion. So he came out big time in Game 1 or Game 4 in the first quarter, and the Pacers aren't scared to come into New York. That's the one thing too. They don't have any fear about coming in there. They've done it twice already. They did it last year, winning Game 7 there. So yeah, he's feeling pretty good, as he should, and we'll see what happens on Thursday.
Yeah, and speaking of seeing what happens, my quick final thought here is both Brian Windhorst and Shams have quickly came out and said to buckle up because it's going to be a wild offseason of moves. I know that I'm excited. The offseason is one of my favorite times when we have deals to discuss, trades, drafts, picks, things of that nature. So buckle up, everyone. We've got an exciting playoff still brewing and an exciting offseason just around the corner. But with that, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date and 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.